Hence, just imagine that a BMW which costs 80 lakhs today could be available for 50 lakhs tomorrow. But wait, what will be the real price we pay? The big trade deal happening between India and Europe isn't just about cars and wine. When America slapped a 50% tax on our goods, India needed a new route, and Europe could be that route. But the real question is this: will it actually make a difference to your pocket? Will IT jobs increase or building a house become more expensive? Let's discuss this in depth today. So, friends, by the end of this video, I'll tell you whether, in my opinion, this deal is a game changer or game over for India. But first, let's hear what the expert has to say. To discuss this crucial topic, we have today Dr. Adityanjee, President of the Council for Strategic Affairs. Welcome, Dr. Adityanjee. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Sinha, for inviting me on Reality Check to discuss the India-EU free trade agreement that was just signed.
Sir, the very first question on my mind is this deal about politics or business?
That's a very interesting question. And if you kept tab on what was happening, and you saw the statements made by the EU President, Ursula von der Leyen, she clearly said that this is both actually. And in today's world, geopolitics cannot be separated from geoeconomics. Both are intricately interlinked. So you don't have one at the cost of other. They are linked issues. And she said very eloquently that in a situation when world is full of unpredictability, when superpowers are bypassing the multilateral routes and multilateral mechanisms, this deal between EU and India will lead to more predictable multipolar world with stability in supply chains and rules of commerce. So, and it was not just that we signed India-EU FTA. There was a subsidiary agreement also signed. People are not focusing on that. And that was between EU Vice President and the EU's Foreign Affairs Representative, Kaja Kallas, and India's Foreign Minister, Minister for External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar. And that was on actually strategic partnership. So you are having actually two agreements being signed in parallel at the same time between the two blocks, India and EU. So it is not just trade, it's a very, very multi-faceted, multi-dimensional partnership we are entering with a large economic bloc, with significant purchasing power, with very sophisticated consumer. And this actually is a game changer. This is a game changer for India and all sectors of Indian economy. It's not just, one sector. If you look at it, I have this 8-page document which takes a sectoral approach and tells you it's not just, heavy industry. Yes, Indian steel will be exported. There will not be restrictions on Indian steel.
I see.
But, Indian leatherwork, footwear, jewelries and gems, they will also get preferential access.
Mm.
Small scale sector, you will have the apparel industry, ready-made garments, they will have duty-free access. You have like agricultural products, you know, vegetables, fruits, and then, fishery, shrimps, frozen fish. Everything is being talked about. And let's not, focus just on trade on goods, intellectuals, services, IT sector, consulting services, financial services. Indian professionals will have easy access to, as on short-term temporary contracts, just akin to H-1B in United States. There are, at least at this point in time, 960,000 Indian professionals in EU countries, and that number will increase. So if I look, it is a win-win-win situation. It is a win for EU, it is a win for India, and it is a win for consumers on the both ends.
Is the agricultural goods included in the agreement?
So it's a very sophisticated kind of this thing. India's traditional farm sector, on which India has reservations, will not be included. But it gives, so Europe will not be able to dump GMOs. Actually, Europe does not grow GMOs.
Mhm.
It's only US that insists on GMOs, and where India has reservation, Europe actually has restrictions about GMOs. But Indian agricultural products will have preferential market access to EU. That is the most important thing. At the same time, protecting the sensitive domestic sectors.
So to finalize the deal has to pass through the Indian Parliament and the EU Parliament. So there are 27 members in the European Union. So do we think it will go through?
So no, before it goes to for ratification in the respective legislatures and all,
Mhm.
the deal has been signed. It will be vetted by the legal sides on both the parties. So
Right.
it would be Ministry of Law and Ministry of External Affairs, which will be looking into the legalities of some of these agreements to
Mhm.
come to this thing that we do not actually violate any of the domestic rules as well as international, you know, WTO rules or stuff like that, because you don't want to. Similarly, Brussels, the EU's headquarter, will
Mhm.
review, the legal department will review. Once that legal review is over, which may take 6, 7 months, then the respective parliaments will approve it. I don't have any doubts because, there is something about free trade. Trade is like water, it takes a path of least resistance. You cannot ban the free trade between two entities.
Mhm.
As Europe is finding out that their traditional, you know, allies,
Mhm.
i.e., United States, is putting tariffs on Europe in a very unpredictable manner. They signed a deal for 15% tariff
Mhm.
initially, and that was sent for all the processing further down the line.
Mhm.
There was a threat of another 10% if they don't bend down on Greenland. You know, so when you have that kind of environment,
Mhm.
there is a motivation, there's an incentive to find alternative markets. Now, let's go into the history. India EU trade negotiation started in 2007.
Yes.
That was a different world. Europe was more firmly aligned with United States. Europe did not have incentive to, enter into equitable
Mhm.
negotiations with India. India had its own reservations about certain things, and things got stuck around 2013 when the negotiations were suspended. Negotiations restarted around 2021, but in 2023, EU suspended the GSP, preferential treatment, general system of preferential treatment for Indian apparels. Okay.
Mhm.
So that was a jolt to Indian export of ready-made garments and apparels. What happens now? That looking at the totality of the situation, both the parties thought that it will be a good market access for both the sides. You
Mm,
have a 2 billion strong consumer market. You have 25% of the world GDP. India's GDP at this point in time is 4.5 trillions, and EU's is around $22.5 trillion. So it's a very substantial economy, and harmonization of trade between these two entities, albeit in a phased manner,
mm,
will still be very, very relevant, and there are certain things that can happen almost immediately. India at this point in time, has around 12% tariff on the apparels and ready-made garments going into EU. China also has the same, but India has only 4.9% of the EU apparel market share.
mm.
China has 30%.
Oh,
EU has given zero tariff agreements to Bangladesh, to
mm,
Turkey, to Pakistan, to Vietnam. So it's a 0 versus 12% sort of competition. And when you have zero tariffs, Indian apparel exports will increase tremendously, not immediately,
mm,
to have the supply chains geared towards European standards and to the taste of European consumer, because Europe is very strong in fashion industry. Their total fashion industry is around 280 billion US dollars. So if you can actually increase your market share from 5% to 15% and give, run for the money to China or for that matter to Bangladesh, I think Indian, small scale companies specializing, in Tamil Nadu, in Tirupur corridor and in Punjab, in Ludhiana, hosiery industry,
mm.
all those things will benefit.
So just talking about the consumer, suppose I am going to build a house. So how
Mm.
is it going to affect me?
Look, that's a very kind of sort of simplistic notion.
No.
As far as consumer is concerned, if we look at the broad principles, what this deal will lead to, this deal will lead to reduction in EU's dependencies, one on US, second on China. Okay. Number two, it will increase the trade competitiveness of India in EU, thereby reducing India's trade dependencies on United States. Third, because Indian exporter will have to cater to a very sophisticated and elite consumer and will have to comply with certain standards, because Indian products had certain deficiencies that they were not able to compete. But now, with assured market access, there will be attempts to excel the standards of the exports to European levels.
Mm.
Now, the trickle down effect will be that Indian consumer will get benefited. you
Oh.
know Europe has certain standards, phytosanitary standards and things like that. So if you are able to manufacture for export quality goods, that is the term used in India, export quality goods, to the top level standard, domestic consumer is going to benefit. Okay. And if domestic consumer is richer, if you are a cottage industry, let's say you are a rural area woman who's making handicrafts, okay, and traditional Madhubani paintings and things like that, and you have assured access, your pocket money, your income in your pocket will increase. So all sectors of the society will benefit, because the more you export, the more money the nation makes, and more money the nation makes, those who are the producers, they also get more money. So your economic condition will get better, And over a period of time, because certain things will be phased over 6 to 7 years and actually fully implementable by 10 years, so there will be complete harmonization. 99 points, 6% of European market will be accessible to India. 96.3% of Indian market will be accessible to EU. So there will be spurring of domestic competitiveness and that will raise domestic standards. You know, you have this adage that Indian professionals don't do well when they are in India. When they go abroad, they do very well because what they have is a competitive environment. And we know all the lacunae in Indian system, that there is, nepotism and, connections and corruption and all that sort of thing that stifles the talent, and talent goes abroad. So you have brain drain. Similarly, in manufacturing or production, there is this attitude, for lack of better term, that everything is fine, but nothing is fine, nothing is excellent. People just, don't give attention. I'll give you example, in pharmaceutical industry, there were multiple deaths because of consuming cough syrup, okay, across multiple states.
Yeah.
Why? Because standards were lax, bribes were given, nobody made the inspections and all. That kind of situation will change when you are catering to a market which is very quality sensitive, which focuses on standards. And there is no harm in admitting that there is a deficiency domestically in India, that we do not take things, seriously. So if we are exporting, let's say, agricultural items, we'll have to
Mm.
make sure that they are of quality, they are quality products. You know, if you look at, certain food establishments in India, the
Mm.
kind of hygienic standards and all that sort of thing,
Yeah.
there's much to be desired.
Yeah.
And we have to be, broad-minded and understand that these are our deficiencies. We have to improve the hygienic standards in manufacturing process. We don't have to, just take an easy way out and bribe the inspectors and things like that. So overall, it is for the betterment of the country, betterment for the consumers. It's not just about, wines and spirits and BMWs. I'm talking about regular things. It gives you a very good market for Indian generics to Europe. In
Mm.
contrast, Europe is very strong on branded medications. They have invested a hell of a lot of money into these biotechs and pharmaceutical industry. And it takes lot of lag time for these products to come to India as biosimilars. Now, if we have more harmonization, understanding of each other's standards, Indian sort of consumer or patients will get easier access to, you know, medications or therapies or biologics at an earlier date. And if you have supply chain integration in all the industry, because you will have Europe relying less on China, more on India, there will be, spurring of domestic growth, domestic R&D, domestic infrastructure. Similarly, with India's involvement in PESCO, you know about PESCO, Permanent Security Cooperation, which is an EU project.
I see.
India has become a partner in PESCO now. So, you diversify your armament equipment from sources like Russia, France, Israel, and United States. Now, EU also becomes a factor in that.
Mm.
So you are reducing your dependencies. And I think that is very, very important that there was a time when Indian, defense equipment, 90% used to come from Russia.
Yeah.
Now it is not so. Now it is around 45% or so. In an ideal situation, all the defense armaments and hardware and whatever should be domestically manufactured. We are not there yet. We do need an injection and infusion of technology,
Mm,
and this defense and security partnership that we have signed will allow us to, get European technology, access to European technology. So it's a very wide ranging accord that has pretty much every sector of economy involved.
mm.
So I have, there is no like, magic moment, magic bullet that will transform Indian economy, but it is akin to 1991 liberalization when Indian industrialists thought that, by liberalizing we'll be consumed by the multinationals. It did not happen. Similarly, yes, there will be some challenges for Indian industry, whether that is large, heavy industry or medium and small scale or cottage. There will be challenges because you'll have to have certain standards, and you'll have certain compliance issues, but those would be good for the nation and for domestic consumer.
So this will create a good number of jobs for Indians.
Of course, when you have greater market access, the share of exports will go up. And it's not one time deal because there will be progressive liberalization, progressive reduction in duty. It takes time for supply chain integrations. There's another issue. We are now in India signing bilateral FTAs with a lot of countries. We have at least 20 FTAs and CPAs, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreements, or CEGSAs, which is Comprehensive Economic and Commercial Agreements, with almost 20 entities. But India has never been part of large multilateral trading agreements. India was excluded from APEC. We know that for years, whether it was China, whether it was United States, whether it was Southeast Asian economies, whether it was Europe, all disdained India at that point in time and deliberately excluded India from APEC. India has an FTA with ASEAN, but it has a lot of defects, and ASEAN is dragging its feet to, you know, modify it. We have SAFTA, South Asia Free Trade Agreement, that has been held hostage to terrorism by Pakistan. It has not realized its full potential. But largely, the world is divided into large trade blocs. India is not part of those large trade blocs. India deliberately decided not to join RCEP. And I think that was a wise decision because China would have dumped everything through RCEP to India. But with having this free trade agreement with EU, there is a possibility that eventually India may become also part of what is called CPTPP, Comprehensive Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership,
Mm.
which is a very high-end trade group of 11 economies, very advanced economies. And the important thing is that CPTPP does not include either China or United States.
Oh, how come this
So
is
you have,
possible? How come this?
well, that is what it is. And US decided not to join it. China wants to join it,
Mm.
but the CPTPP countries are not very hot on China. Now, by raising our domestic manufacturing standards, our compliance rules, quality of control, all those kind of things in every sphere of Indian economy, this is not the end goal for this FTA.
Mm.
Idea is to have Indian exports at the top level so that you become party to all these trade agreements from a
Mm.
position of advantage.
Mm.
The more exports you do, Indian economy is currently driven by domestic consumption. Yes, we have a large burgeoning middle class with discretionary spending power, but there's a limit to that. If you have to increase your foreign reserves, foreign exchange, and you have to be strong and you have to invest in your domestic infrastructure, educational infrastructure, defense preparedness, strategic issues, you need more capital. You cannot just finance that by budgetary deficit financing, printing more money. You have to be more competitive in trade. And this gives you opportunity to raise to the level that nobody can question your products.
So generally we see Indian workers lack in skills actually. So what kind of a skill they should learn, at least the youngsters, to become more competitive in going abroad and working there?
Look, I will take this with a mix, this thing. If you look at Indian sort of, professionals,
Mhm.
whether it's college professionals, whether it's doctors, whether it is, IT sector, computer professionals, once they leave the country, they are able to adjust to the standards abroad. Issue comes domestically because the our industries, our establishments do not, spend much money on R&D. That has been a lacuna. Now, by having supply chain integration and EU investing in you know global hubs in India, you will have a trickle down effect. Okay, if you are, let's say, in automobile sector, let's say if EU starts sourcing certain products like leather upholstery for their luxury cars, you know certain specialized uh, products like from materials, you know from India, obviously you will have to manufacture at that standard and you'll have to sort of absorb that technology. Already you have Skills India program. The problem is that these are theoretical programs that do not lead to any, opportunities for work. I'll give you an example. In a country like Germany, a lot of youngsters from school onwards, they
Yeah.
are not aspiring to go to college.
Oh.
They aspire to get apprenticeship in their large behemoths of industry. So from high school onwards, they start making visits to these, industries, let's say Mercedes Benz or BMW. And there they have to do internship for 3 or 4 years and then they become part of their engineering environment. Okay. They don't go for college degrees. Now that's kind of environment is lacking in India. You don't have good apprenticeships. Their focus is on getting a paper degree of BA or BSc or something like that, which is useless in current environment. So we'll have to change our mindset when we are trying to compete at every level. And as far as movement of professionals is concerned,
Yeah.
Indian professionals are at par with professionals all over the world. You know, yes, there are lack of research opportunities in Indian establishments, whether they are privately controlled industries or universities, but that mindset has to change.
And which business do you think it will boom?
So it's not a question of isolated sector. I do have this 8 page long document.
Yeah.
And basically, it talks about every part of the industry, whether it is automobiles, whether it is steel, whether it is pharmaceuticals, whether it is leather and footwear, whether it is agricultural issues, uh, you know, traditional medicine. As part of this agreement, uh, India's Ayush practitioners will have access to EU market. They will be able to establish, which is a fad in Europe at this point in time, wellness centers.
I
So
see.
Indian companies will be able to invest in wellness centers in Europe. As far as professionals are concerned, there are 144 service subsectors that will be affected. Okay. Uh, so it is not that one particular sector of industry will gain.
Mm.
Even Indian engineering products, because tools and heavy industry products still have 22% tariffs from EU. Those tariffs will go away. India is very good in manufacturing tools and engineering products, leather and footwear. So marine exports, medical instruments, appliances, supplies, jewelry exports, gems, textiles, ready-made garments, plastic, rubber. It's a whole list. It's not that one sector will benefit. It will benefit all sectors of Indian economy. It will increase the market access with increased higher exports. Not only the government will benefit in terms of foreign exchange reserves,
Mhm.
Indian industrialists will develop a safety net, and the producers at small level, they will have higher incomes. So you will see the median income grow with these better market accesses. And in ready-made garments and apparel industry,
Mhm.
immediately in next 1 to 2 years, you will start seeing higher proportion of Indian market share from 4.9% to maybe 7-8%, because yes, the apparel manufacturers are more geared towards US,
Mhm.
deals and US contracts, but they can easily, shift their production, lines to EU requirements, and the big fashion brand from EU companies, EU is very high on fashion brands, and they outsource from countries like Bangladesh, like Vietnam, like Cambodia, like China. They will set up a shop in India.
Generally, the business had to be more competitive.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, yes. It will spur competitiveness because you have an opportunity to make money. If
Mm.
you're competitive, you will survive. And that's the goal.
So should
Oh,
small manufacturers be worried or excited?
they should be excited because their products will get market access. By reduction of tariffs to zero level,
Mhm.
their products will be competitive in European market.
So I have a last question with me.
Hmm.
Does this India EU, mother of all trade deals,
Hmm.
spell trouble for Donald Trump?
So, in international relations, we look at two things. One is optics,
Mm.
and second is chemistry. Okay, that is generally said. And both were very good when you saw the photo ops, when you looked at the opportunity that the EU president and European Council president, which is Da Costa's, both came, were the chief guests on India's Republic Day. That was very good optics. And their statements and the visible chemistry between them, the photo ops told you that chemistry was very good. uh, you know EU president had to talk about Makar Sankranti and the way she was dressed in Indian themed apparels, and for the Costas to show his OCI card, and the way they were you know feeling and showing their compliments to India and India's growth, uh, suggested that chemistry between the leaders is good. Okay. But if you look at the structure of this trade agreement, it tells me that the physiology is also good. And that is very interesting because a question was asked in a press conference that whether EU and India have, rushed this deal because of United States. And the answer from Piyush Goyal was very interesting. Well, we didn't even talk about it. But this is a message to a power, and of course, Ursula von der Leyen referred to it that we are in a uncertain stage when major superpowers are very unpredictable, changing the rules, not going by the rules, avoiding multilateral organization, rules of the multilateral organization. It is definitely a message that we can do trade without you. Nothing stops. And this is what I'm saying. Free trade is like water. It will
Okay.
find a way, and nobody can bully another country that you must buy, F-35s from me. Okay. And if you don't buy, I am going to put tariffs on you. You must increase the market share. You should stop buying oil from Russia. Otherwise, I'm going to put additional 25% tariffs on you. I mean, that was the most damaging thing done to bilateral relationship by one individual. And the answer is that we don't panic. The country will move on with, with you or without you. And this is a sort of demonstration
Yeah.
from both EU and India
Mm.
that we have our strategic autonomous space.
Yeah.
Geoeconomics and geopolitics are interlinked these days. It gives you a trend that world is not stagnant at post 1945 level, that EU is tied to the string of United States and India will always be in a subservient role. It is telling you of a new reality, a new emerging multipolar world,
Mm.
and it tells you that EU and US are in a process of slow divorce. It is very, very evident. And India has to capitalize on that opportunity. India does not perceive any nation as an enemy nation,
Mm.
but if you strike at India's interest, India will take steps to safeguard her own interests, whether they are commercial, whether they are economic, or whether they are strategic. Every country is allowed to do that, and India is emerging as a very confident country in the international arena. And yes, but not by choice, not by
Mm.
design, just by sheer happenstance, it is a strong message, not to just one country, not to just one leader, but to the rest of the world, that India has arrived on the scene and has to be taken, at its word. You cannot bully India to take all these GMO products
Mm.
against its will when Indian consumer does not
We have
want
run out
that.
of time, so we have to just wipe out. Thank you, friends. So that was all for today. If you have any question on your mind, just write in the comment. We'll be answering those comments. Thank you, Dr. Adityanjee. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sinha. It was a pleasant discussion. And as I said, India's moment has arrived on the world stage.
Yeah.
7.5% annual growth. Nobody can beat you. In